First off, I want to welcome you back to the channel. I started Attorney Chameleon to talk about areas of law that I find interesting and topics that I think are worth sharing. All right. My only hope is that you can walk away here with something new or something easy that you could digest to some extent. Today, I kind of want to talk about trucks. I want to talk about these things that we avoid on the road. And I also want to talk about our cars, right? The vehicles that we get inside of day by day. Sometimes I think we forget that we are driving something that could possibly cause a lot of harm, right? I mean, these things weigh about, what, 3 to 4,000 pounds? And I'm talking about our vehicles here. But we often forget the fact that we're driving something that can actually hurt somebody, right? I mean, and who could blame us? We use these things every day. It's so common. I mean, nobody wakes up thinking, oh, today's a day that I'm going to hurt somebody. I don't think anybody wakes up like that. And when we're using these cars, I don't know, we're probably leaving work to go home. Maybe we're going to go to the grocery store, go grocery shopping, maybe going on a date. But it's the last thing on your mind is that you might hurt somebody. And when we're driving, right, we see these large trucks. And what do we all do? We avoid them, right? We shift over a lane, we let them pass, right? Sometimes we try to drive super fast to try to get in front of it so that we could not have it in our driving time. I know I do it. But when you think about it, these trucks, as annoying as they are, and to some extent this nation's backbone, in my opinion, I mean, let's think about it. Truck drivers, they drive all sorts of hours and they transport medicine, machines, merchandise from state to state. And they sometimes do it while we're asleep, right? So while we're asleep, they're out there on the road driving, keeping our economy going, flowing. And I think we all can say that that's a great thing. But the real problem comes when the truck drivers are exhausted, when the truck drivers are tired, they haven't had enough rest for the night, right? The issue with that is that it puts everyone's life at the risk of danger, right? It's possible or likely that you get hurt due to someone being exhausted on a road. And it's the same thing would go for a vehicle. But you're driving a vehicle that's probably 50 to 80,000 pounds, then it matters a lot more, right? It matters a lot more. And the thing about that is we have to think about, well, what do we hold somebody who can drive a truck as opposed to someone who drives a vehicle to, right? What do we hold them to, right? I mean, we know that driving a truck is not an easy thing to do, right? You've seen these semi trucks try to back up into corners. It's actually a skill. It's an art, in my opinion, to see how they can maneuver a vehicle like that, especially a semi truck. But again, we know that there are different kind of class of drivers, right? I mean, you have your standard driver's license, but if you drive a truck, you have a special license called a CDL, or commercial driver's license, and we can kind of tell that that must mean that these are two different kinds of drivers, right? One is likely more skilled than the other, right, or more skilled in something than the other. So they must be regulated under some kind of rule, right? Something maybe similar to what average drivers of vehicles are too, but maybe they're held up to a little higher kind of standard. And with that comes in some responsibilities that we want them to hold. For example, if you're driving a truck, I don't want you to be tired driving a truck on a highway because you can seriously hurt people. But what do we know? When you're tired, what do? Right? You go to a gas station, you get a 5-hour energy, maybe you get a Red Bull. Maybe you call somebody, a family member, you speak with them on the phone for an hour or two. You try to keep things going. You try to keep it, you try to keep on task, right? You got a job to do. But the real question is, why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to stop, right? Why is it so hard to not just pull over at the next truck stop, to avoid putting everybody at risk of danger? I really don't think that's an easy question to answer. I mean, common sense tells you just pull over. But there's likely something else driving the driver, and no pun intended, to continue going, right? To not stop. Like, what would that be? And I don't know, it could be financial reasons, it could be contracts that are made between party A and party B, who says that this truck will be there by a certain time in the morning, and if it's not there, there's a penalty because they didn't make the delivery on time to bring that merchandise over by a certain time period. Could that be the reason why drivers aren't stopping? These truck drivers with these 50 to 80,000 pound vehicles. I don't know. I really can't answer that, but I can only imagine it's one factor, right? Again, I don't think truck drivers wake up with the intention of hurting anybody that day, but I do believe that truck drivers should keep it in mind, at least, because they're driving a vehicle that can cause some serious damage, right? Which kind of leads me to what I want to talk about, and I'm sorry for getting to it now. I just had a little rant because something that's been on my mind this past week. The Tracy Morgan versus the Walmart suit. I don't know if you heard about it. It's a suit that came out in 2014. And I think you know who Tracy Morgan is, but for those who don't, Tracy Morgan is a comedian. He was performing in, I believe it was Delaware, and he was doing a comedy show. And as you can imagine, the show probably went well. At the end of the show, the actors and stuff probably had to get home, etc. And they get into this Mercedes Sprinter van. And at some point throughout the night, semi truck hits them, right? And as you can imagine, the semi truck belonged to Walmart. The truck was driven by a man named, I believe, Kevin Roper, who was from Georgia. And it's my understanding that that morning, he woke up in Georgia. He drove his personal vehicle to Delaware. And the reason why he drove it to Delaware was because that's kind of where Walmart is headquartered, etc. And they had a truck there for him to pick up and to drive and to begin his 14-hour shift. And you can imagine the drive from Georgia to Delaware is not a simple drive to do. It's a lot of hours, right? And then to begin your drive to your final destination. Needless to say, it's reported that Mr. Roper was exhausted and tired. And at some point, while driving 65 miles an hour, he slammed into the back of Morgan's Sprinter van. And I believe the van flipped over and someone died.
Information tonight, investigators say fatigue was a factor in the New Jersey crash that seriously injured Tracy Morgan and killed his friend. CBS 2's Alana Gold reports.
It was June of 2014 on the New Jersey Turnpike. A Walmart truck slammed into a vehicle in Cranberry, carrying Tracy Morgan and his friends, leaving the comedian with severe brain trauma and broken bones, and killing his fellow comedian, James McNair. A year later, Morgan talked about the traumatic incident.
He was a good man. It just hurt me to see that he's gone.
NTSB investigators met today and spoke off camera, saying this could have been prevented, and point the finger at that Walmart driver, Kevin Roper.
He had only 4 hours of sleep opportunity in the 33 hours prior and had been awake in excess of 28 hours at the time of the crash.
They say Roper refused to be interviewed, so they examined his work and phone records. Investigators tell us he missed a night of sleep and was off the clock when he chose to drive from his home in Georgia to Delaware to start his Walmart truck route. Then he immediately got behind the wheel of this company truck, and the deadly crash happened when he was on the clock hours later.
Crazy thing about the story, too, is that it took about 40 minutes for the rescuers to be able to get everyone out the van, right? Because the van was designed, and I think that's an old issue within itself. It was custom made, this van. And I guess the question is, was this all avoidable, right? Could this have been avoided? Did somebody have to die that night? Could Roper just had pulled over, got some rest? I think the obvious answer is yes, but I don't think that's the clear answer, right? Because I think there might have been some factors that might have led him to believe that he was able to continue. But that's not how this thing kind of works, right? It's not about really what you believe, but it's more so about what's the reasonable thing to do, right? It's kind of an objective standard rather than one that's subjective, right? And the reasonable thing, looking outward, and is that Mr. Roper should have pulled over at some point, got some rest, slept, and got enough energy to continue his shift. My understanding is that with CDL drivers, and anyone, if you know anything about this, please correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that they're allowed to work 14 hours with an 11-hour drive time, and I think they need about 10-hour periods between the next drive time. Did that occur here? Doesn't seem like it. And it doesn't seem like Mr. Roper had enough rest. So in the end, the case settled for about $90 million. I don't know if that's necessarily a win, as we would say, or a victory, because someone was lost, someone's life was taken. But I think it serves as I don't know, I could imagine it serves as some kind of reminder, right? Such a financial hit like that, to at least have some kind of strict policies in place that protect other drivers on the road, right? Maybe Walmart might learn a lesson from this. Maybe truck drivers might learn a lesson from this. I believe Mr. Rope is facing criminal charges as a result of the accident. But in the end, I don't know if this was a lesson that needed to be learned, having driven a 50 to 80,000 pound vehicle at 60 miles per hour, 20 miles above the speed limit. It's unfortunate. Anyways, if you are driving out there, be safe on the road. I know you don't think about it often because it's not something to think about every time that we wake up in the morning and we're just going about our day, but just remember that you're driving something that can cause a lot of damage. Anyways.